Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Talking Point. I'm Mayor Mike, and with me is Duane Greuel. Duane works for Operation Bootstrap, among other things. His family's been involved in the community for a very long time. Duane, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, glad to be here.
So, Operation Bootstrap, give me an idea of what it is, how it was founded, what the mission is.
Well, it started with Roseanne DeBow and a few other ladies. It was operated out of Roseanne DeBow's garage and maybe parts of her basement back in the late 60s, I believe. And we didn't really move to the warehouse until sometime in the 70s. And I believe the land is owned by the city, and the structure itself is owned by the foundation or Bootstrap. And we've been going full steam ever since. Back then, it was like 1 or 2 families a week. And as of last week, we were doing 60 families a day.
60 families a day, wow.
Yes, and that will vary seasonally. Sometimes we average around 20 families a day, 5 days a week, except, on certain holidays.
Well, that's part of the reason that I wanted to get you on here is it's the holiday season. Everybody is kind of in the giving mood and willing to help. But it's also one of the more busy times for you and services that Operation Bootstrap provides, the Interfaith Food Pantry, all of the needs that are out there kind of get overwhelming at this time of the year. Give me an idea of what services Operation Bootstrap offers and how the volume increases, especially during the holidays.
Well, primarily we're a food pantry, an emergency food pantry, and people can apply through social services or through their church. We take referrals.
Okay.
And we give out approximately 2 to 3 weeks worth of food per family per month. But mainly we do food. We also do we give out coats, boots, help with utilities, transportation costs.
Okay.
And pretty much a catch-all if somebody needs some money for tools, for example. We will do that. We give out bikes. It's kind of like a catch-all, but primarily we're involved with distribution of food. Okay,
and that's the primary goal.
Right.
So, and that's great. One of the things I wanted to highlight is all of the resources that are available, and of course, United Way's 211 is a good resource for connecting. Health and Human Services is really aware of all of these opportunities. Operation Bootstrap being on a referral basis, so John Doe and his family, or Jane Doe and her family, find themselves a little strapped for cash during the holiday season. They can apply. How do they get to you? You said through the church, through social services or health and human services. Do you have an application online or anything like that?
Everything's done through pretty much social services.
Okay.
And then we get a fax or a referral from them. Then we open up a file. And then our files are like how many people are in your family, what ages they are. And then our food our clothing is drawn based on, if they have a lot of little kids, then we kind of cater the basket of food or cart of food to the ages. Okay,
and you do this every month. So if Jane or John Doe signs up, gets referred over to Operation Bootstrap, what's the process after that? How do you get the food and or clothing to the family?
Okay, the family then comes and picks the items up, the grocery cart up. We're what we call a closed pantry. So we have office staff, and then we have pantry staff, and then warehouse staff. And the pantry staff goes through and puts the food based on the family needs into the cart. And that cart is then labeled with their name on it. And then the clients come and pick up their cart. And we roll it out to the desk, and they will load it into their car.
And I imagine you set an appointment for that?
Well, they come, yes. They are basically told when their cart would be available for pickup.
What if someone doesn't have an automobile or they don't have transportation? Is there another way?
Yeah, that's a good question. A certain percentage of our clients don't have transportation. So we provide what we call runners.
Okay.
And the runners will take the cart or the food in boxes and actually deliver it to their home or their rental part or property or whatever it may be.
Well, that's very nice. And so each of the baskets are put together specifically for that family. So if there's dietary restrictions, maybe someone is lactose intolerant or has a gluten allergy or a peanut allergy, you can work within those guidelines to make sure that the baskets that they're given are tailored to them and it's actually usable things, right?
Right. And especially when it comes down to culture, there's some cultures, where they can only eat lamb or, especially processed food.
Okay.
And so we have sections that specifically are geared toward those cultures.
Yeah.
And that's pretty common. I mean, we have Hmong, Jewish,
Somalians.
the whole works,
Muslim,
right across.
sure, Muslim religion.
And they're all pretty different, and some cultures don't like any canned food, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of hard to work around, but we manage.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, and the work you do is great. I mean, we've worked together on a couple of different projects, and I just think it's amazing how the community always comes together when there's a need. This one is a particular interest because it's really tailored to the families. I know this time of the year, a lot of organizations do holiday food baskets. They put together a generic basket and deliver it to families who sign up, but they're not necessarily tailored. You may get a Christmas ham. And if you don't eat pork, well, what do you do with this now?
Right.
So it's great that there are the resources out there, and the role that Operation Bootstrap plays is really a critical component of addressing all of the food insecurities that we have in the community. Talk a little bit about the staff. What's a typical day in Operation Bootstrap? What goes on at the building?
Well, it changed a little bit about 10 years ago when we started partnering with Feeding America. Mm-hmm. And now what we do, we have an early shift, and we pick up with Feeding America all from Walmart every day, Panera Foods, Rocky Rococo, and we do all the quick trips.
Okay.
So we have runners that actually do that. We make a pretty big load from Walmart every day. Mm-hmm. And that gets brought to the warehouse and we triage it. Then we go through, if this doesn't look quite right, and then it goes from there right onto the shelves, is used immediately. And then the warehouse also picks up from other warehouses. We gather from places like the old cops warehouse operations. And we pick up loads of food from Feeding America that were delivered. And then of course we're one of all these largest buyers in the state of Wisconsin for food. We buy basically a semi every 5 weeks.
Okay. You talked about all the local community partners and even some of the regional or national community partners that you have working with Walmart and Aldi's and Quick Trip, along with some of the local places. What are some of the areas that Operation Bootstrap gets their product from other than those drop-offs? Do you have individual donors? Do you partner with local grocery stores or work with other food pantries?
All of the above.
All of the above.
We have a lot of partners in this community. First of all the churches. Okay. And then we have, the vets organization. I mean, just almost every organization here is some way helping us, which is really, says a lot about our community.
Well, and that is pretty tremendous because you had mentioned earlier about you working with other groups to share resources. You get a pallet of tortillas. Well, you may not be able to distribute those in a reasonable time, but what you do is you share those resources. When you have something, you share it with other groups. When they have something, they share it with you to try and get the products out to the people that need them as broad as possible, right? Right.
And that can be a big task in itself because, for example, we got a couple of pallets of eggs. Mm-hmm. Well, there's also a timeline for freshness there.
Yeah.
So a pallet would have maybe 50 cases of eggs, which is 15 dozen a case. Oof. And that's a lot of eggs. And the thing of it is, in a lot of this stuff, we don't know when they're going to come in or when it's going to be available to us. And all of a sudden, we're dropped with all these pallets. And we have a timeline on trying to make room for other stuff that we're getting in. And so, for eggs, we say, people coming in, take 2 or 3 dozen.
Yeah.
And in the stores, they're like $4 or $5 a dozen.
That's a big deal.
So when the price goes up in the store, we get it. Basically, that's what the process is there. But I want to go back to your other question: what happens on a day-to-day basis? And that is after we're done, which is around 10 o'clock. Then we have the shift. There's 2 shifts actually. There's the office shift and the pantry shift, and then involves 4 parties, people for each shift. So, and that goes from 10 to 1. And then 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So we have 2 shifts. So that's 16 people per day that are volunteers.
Wow.
And those volunteers are the nuts and bolts of Operation Bootstrap. Without those volunteers, we cannot do what we do today.
That's something we should point out too. If someone wanted to get involved, maybe they want to help. They've got a couple of spare hours a week. Maybe you're retired or your work allows some interaction. If someone wanted to volunteer to help, what can they do?
Well, just call our office, and there is an application process. But we do need a lot of volunteers just as substitutes. I'm a young guy, and I'm 72 years old, and there are a lot more people, that they're snowbirds. They take off during the winter, and we do need people to fill their positions. And when that happens, we'll take anybody, as long as they're able to come and do what they,
Yeah, well, you've got different assignments too. It wouldn't all be lifting and bending and moving product around. There's other things.
Secretary, office clerical staff, just handle the phones is important. I always tell the volunteers is that your family comes first. Your personal needs are all above volunteering. That comes first.
Yeah.
And then if you can, great. We'll take you. And it's a great group of people. If it's proven if you're a volunteer, you're going to live a longer life than if you don't.
Well, and I've had interactions with the volunteers at Operation Bootstrap, some of the other volunteers too. They're all fabulous, wonderful, giving people. What's the phone number if someone wanted to find out more information about how to volunteer?
715-344-1544.
Okay. And do you have a website?
We're working on it.
Working on it. Maybe there's a volunteer out there that can help.
Fairly soon, yes. Actually, when you do have a website, there's a lot to maintaining it.
There certainly
and
is.
We need people that have some sort of ability in the internet and web development.
So you mentioned, talking about the need, especially this time of the year. You said you average 20 families a day, roughly.
Yeah.
And this time of the year, you're doing as many as 60.
Yes.
That shows a tremendous need, and
it's been growing for ever since COVID. Since COVID, things have really changed.
Okay.
The logistics of getting stuff to the pantry versus getting it out. Transportation, even logistics. The logistics of everything. Just picking up a pellet from Festival Foods. It's pretty interesting. And then was about a year and a half ago, we had all those swimming pool noodles.
Oh, yeah, I remember some of those.
The rule of thumb is you don't turn anything down, so we accepted a semi-full swimming pool noodles, and thank God they were used everywhere, Well,
I think people get creative with that. But, that shows how important it is to have that distribution network that you have.
Right.
You didn't get rid of a truckload of swimming pool noodles in Stevens Point. It was all over, right?
It was literally central Wisconsin.
Who's got use of this, right?
Right.
Are there things that you have a consistent need for? Like we never have enough X.
Well, there always is a need for almost everything. What we're seeing now is I used to buy a semi-load of produce and groceries once a quarter. And now I'm doing it every 5 weeks.
Wow.
And that's based on the need. A semi-load of groceries is roughly $40,000 to $50,000, depending how much meat is in the process. But when we give out food, we try and make it nutritional as possible. That means fruit.
That's smart. Not Cheetos and
We try and low fat, low sugar, and low carbs. So we're looking at the apples, oranges, milk, dairy products that are, and those prices are continuously going up. And so that we have to back off on other things, like rent payments or, assistance and utility assistance, so that we meet our primary goal of providing food.
Okay.
And so the money will go a long way.
Right.
Any donation of money.
And let's talk about that for a little bit too, because you mentioned buying these truckloads of food. There's a financial aspect to this too. So how do you get your funding other than, if Mike Wiza wants to drop off a check, we can do that. But do you have other organizations that contribute financially, or is it really just individual donations?
There's a lot of individual donations. We have gotten some nice estates that have left, quite a bit of money to us, but mainly it's individual donations. But keep in mind, we're an old pantry, so people that we were helping, 30 or 40 years ago are now helping us.
Yeah.
Vice versa. So everything is flipped.
That's awesome. Well, you take care of it, right? You remember where you came from and help where you can. So if someone wanted to make a donation, is there a location that they can do that, or just drop off a check at Operation Bootstrap, or maybe is there another community partner?
Sure. Operation Bootstrap, 5000 Heffron Street, Stevens Point.
And you're on the other side of Hoover.
Right. We're
out
on
in what I'd call the industrial park.
The east side of Hoover, right. Yeah. Tucked in, it would be east of Hirschner's.
Right. Yeah, it's off of Coy Drive there.
Right.
Some people might remember it as the turn by the Elmer's gas station or service center.
Exactly. That's
but yeah, you're not exactly easy to find.
No, but it's a good location because of the warehouse operations. Every day there's trucks going in and out of our building.
Yeah.
And in fact, I could see a need someday in the future for a larger warehouse.
Okay.
I mean, right now we're running packed. We're full, 90%. When we first started, I got involved on a full-time basis back in 2010.
Okay.
And since then, we've added a huge freezer, 2 walk-in coolers, and 6 other freezers and coolers.
Wow.
And so, because that's where everything is, you got to keep it fresh, and you get a good deal if you can keep stuff frozen. See, a lot of food pantries across Wisconsin don't have that capability. And so that's where we get our foot in the door, where we're able to get stuff from Feeding America simply because we have a cooler.
And how does that Feeding America produce or product come in? They ship it via semi?
Well, it's kind of interesting. They have a warehouse in Little Chute.
Okay.
And a lot of their stuff comes from Little Chute that we order. But we're in a direct intercept program where we actually intercept the food from all these places, and it goes right to our food pantry.
Oh, nice.
Rather than to Little Chute and then back to us. But they have a website. We go on and see what they have available for free or at low cost, and then they deliver it right to Portage County Interfaith or us directly, and vice versa. If we have some excess, we give them a call and say, "Hey, can you pick this up? We have 4 pellets that we can't use."
It makes sense. You operate as efficiently as you possibly can because you're on limited resources.
Right.
And when something comes in, like you said, it has a pretty limited shelf life. So you have to make sure that people who can use it get it in the time that matters. So
it's kind of funny because if let's say meat prices go up and you get a T-bone steak that's $20 or $30, people don't buy that as much because of the cost.
Right.
So then when that steak is starting to age or get to its expiration point, we get it and then we hand it out, and people come and say to us, "Why are you giving out sirloin steaks?" Basically that's what's available to them.
And that's great because the grocers and the people that sell that, that's a loss for them. They would throw it out if the best if buy date is beyond.
Right.
So it's in everybody's best interest, really, to utilize that. And you have a pretty rapid turnaround, it looks like.
Oh, God, yes.
So it makes sense that they get that product out to someone who can use it rather than having to just dispose of it and throw it in a landfill or whatever it happens to be, or compost.
Yeah, our like yogurt. Yogurt has a used by best date. But, we found that goes way beyond that.
It certainly does. I have some in my refrigerator that's beyond expired.
And
It's not expired. Best if used by, right?
Yeah, right. And a lot of it, like with orange juice, it's because the pulp settles down to the bottom of the container, and it has nothing to do with the quality of it. You just shake it up and it's fine.
Well, that's important to know too, because those dates mean a whole bunch of different things in the grocery store. But even me with canned goods, right? Canning salmon or venison, it lasts. I probably had venison and salmon that's 4 years canned.
You're right.
And it's still great. It's just.
And we run into that. Like in Europe, they don't refrigerate any of their eggs. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the United States, we refrigerate their eggs, and the eggs last a long, long time.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
And we're going to be getting, I was just told we're going to be getting in like 6 more pellets next week.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of eggs for us to get rid of.
Well, I think it's because it's the Christmas time. They should be used to bake lots of cookies, and then you can bring some to my office, some to your office.
Yeah, there you go.
You repurpose the product into something that has a more stable shelf life, I think.
Over the years, we've had, like 52 pallets of candy canes, close to the same amount with jelly beans, and then, the swimming pool noodles. We've had all sorts of. You don't turn it down, because you'll never get maybe that party calling you back and say, yeah, I have something else for you. And then a lot of it is when you sign a contract that accepts something, you have to accept everything that's there, whether you like it or not. So.
Well, that's good. And just to recap a couple of things, if there's a family out there that has a need, you get your families through referrals.
Yes.
Those referrals generally come from Health and Human Services.
Churches, our agency,
okay.
Family Crisis Center, you can go on, United Way.
So a family that has a need can go out to one of those locations, explain the need, and then they can get a referral to you.
Yes.
What kind of turnaround is it? Let's just say, I need some food next week. My paycheck didn't last as far as it was going to be. I'm a single parent with a couple of children, and I call today. What's an anticipated turnaround?
Sometimes the same day.
Oh, really?
Yes. Very seldom is it more than a day or two.
Quite remarkable.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you come in on 4 o'clock on a Friday, I think it may be till Monday till you get something, but normally it's fairly quick.
Okay, so if you are watching or listening and you have a need, reach out to one of those agencies and see if they can't get you taken care of. And then if you want to volunteer, or make a donation. Once again, the volunteer, you have an application process.
Yes.
And if there's a donation, they can write a check to you directly, drop off something at your office. Do you have the ability to take credit card donations?
Yes.
You
yes.
do?
Yeah, well, I should clarify that. That will be in the website.
Okay, so it's coming soon.
Yes, and so there'll be all sorts of different ways, to use different PayPal and all that.
Okay.
Comes along with
Great.
that. But those donations, none of the staff or volunteers are paid.
Okay.
These are 100% volunteer positions.
Wow.
And all the money that is donated goes directly to the food pantry, and mainly purchase the food or some needy project.
Yeah.
Which, could be
that's part of the mission.
Putting boots on somebody or buying work tools or, there's some aspect, but it's sometimes it's used the same day.
Yeah, wow.
Which is kind of cool. I think a lot of the people that, from the stores that ask me about the food, and I said it'll probably be put on the food pantry within 2 hours.
Wow.
And it'll go out the same day.
Well, that's great because frequently the needs are kind of immediate.
We're emergency food pantry, so it's usually an emergency. And I mean, we still get, even though it's this time of year, we still get people walking in with shorts and sandals, that
Wow.
that really need a coat, And we do handle a lot of a good winter wear.
Okay. So the donations for the clothing, we didn't touch on that as much as I think we should have. Where do you get your donations of clothing from? Is that something that, boy, I've got a couple of jackets that I might not be using anymore. Can I bring those over as long as they're in good condition and not all torn up?
A lot of them come that way.
Okay.
But we do get clothing from other sources, like For Imprint.
Okay.
So if they
Got a little logo on it?
got a logo that was misspelled, or Walmart, for example, when they change seasons, they will, rather than, it's cheaper for them to donate it than to haul it back to their warehouse.
Oh.
So we'll get that.
Okay.
But mainly the coats, winter coats, that's on an individual basis in donations. And usually in the States where if somebody, passes away and has a lot of good clothing, we get all that.
Okay.
And our big need right now is extra large.
Yeah.
2X large, because those are really hard to find in stores.
Yeah.
But it's one of our biggest needs right now.
Well, and it occurred to me earlier that generally when someone grows, they're going to grow out of their space, and they added this and they added that.
Right.
Normally, people would see that as a good thing, but I think it's quite telling the fact that you, as an emergency food provider, are growing. That tells me that the need is getting up there way more, that we should be paying attention to it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the food prices. The cost of everything goes up, and boy, it just doesn't stretch as far as it used to. And, I know my parents probably said the same thing as inflation hit them, but now being a 50-something-year-old guy, you notice that. You remember when, boy, I could buy a candy bar for a nickel.
Yep,
exactly. The fact that, it's $2 for a candy bar now, it seems insane, but that's kind of how things work. So with the cost of everything going up so much and everybody's dollar not stretching as far as it used to, I think it's really remarkable that volunteers like yourself and everybody at Operation Bootstrap and all of the other organizations that play a role in supporting our community have. And I can't tell you how much as mayor and as a person, I appreciate that. The humanity that these groups show, especially during the holiday season, is second to none, and that's one of my favorite things about this community.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. I can't say enough about the volunteers that we have. They are really out there, and they will come in on a minute's notice sometimes. If we're busy, they don't hesitate to stay over and get the job done.
That's great.
And and it's across the board. There's just so many men, women, and once in a while we get young students and, groups in there from the schools.
Wow. Wonderful. It's such a great community that we live in, and I know, Duane, you've been an active part of that. Terry, of course, your wife, and your son Adam, which, by the way, has a concert at the Holiday Inn on New Year's Eve, right?
Coming up.
Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. We're going to go try and see that one. Your family is wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Everything you guys do. But all of the people that are participating in this, we can't thank you enough, especially during the holiday season. If you want more information about Operation Bootstrap, stop by the office. Or give them a call and find out how you might be able to help. If that doesn't work for you, there's tons of other places that could use your help this holiday season as well. So, Duane, thank you very much for joining us today, telling us a little bit about Operation Bootstrap. And until next time, I'm Mayor Mike, and we have been Talking Point.
For more information about Operation Bootstrap, call 715-344-1544. Talking Point is produced by Mayor Mike Wiza and Stevens Point Community Media.